بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أنبياء الله جميعا وعلى سيدهم وخاتمهم حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان وإيمان إلى يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نبئ عبادي أني أنا الغفور الرحيم وأن عذابي هو العذاب الأليم. ونبئهم عن ضيف إبراهيم إذ دخلوا عليه فقالوا سلاما قال إنا منكم وجلون. قالوا لا توجل إنا نبشرك بغلام عليم. قال أبشرتموني على أن مسني الكبر فبم تبشرون. قالوا بشرناك بالحق فلا تكن من القانطين. قال ومن يقنط من رحمة ربه إلا الضالون. قال فما خطبكم أيها المرسلون. قالوا إنا أرسلنا إلى قوم مجرمين إلا آل لوط إنا لمنجوهم أجمعين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. نبئ عبادي أني أنا الغفور الرحيم. The primary principle and the main principle of the creation, of God's creation, is to bestow His mercy and His forgiveness on the people. Not just the people, on the entire universe. All the creatures in this universe. Not just us. Every existence in this universe enjoys God's mercy, God's forgiveness. نبئ عبادي أني أنا الغفور الرحيم. O Prophet Muhammad, tell. نبئ from naba, from telling, from informing. Tell my servants, عبادي, not عباد, عبادي, my servants, those are my servants. نبئ عبادي أني أنا الغفور الرحيم, that I'm indeed the forgiving, the most merciful. This sentence, God being the most forgiving, the most merciful, provide us with a sense of peace, with encouragement, with inspiration, with empowerment, that God is not brutal. God is not savage. God is the God of love, God of mercy. Provide us with hope, with optimism. We need hope. We need optimism. We need comfort. We need confidence. So the primary reason why God created us is to bestow love, forgiveness, and mercy, not punishment. He loves us. And here we learn from this sentence, نبئ عبادي, it is not confined to the Prophet to tell people that God is the most forgiving, most merciful. نبئ means everyone, including you and me, including everyone. We have to tell, we have to spread this glad tidings, the good news to our families, our children, our neighbors, our friends, our relatives, that God is the God of love. He's the God of forgiveness. He's God of mercy. He's God of rahmah. Anni ana al-ghafur al-rahim. We have to tell people about this. We have to speak always, always. We have to remind people and speak about God's love. So they do not get despaired. Because one of the most dangerous and terrible things that could happen to us when we reach the state of despair, we give up. We give up on God. We say, God is not going to love me. I've done such and such things. I know God is not going to forgive me. This is wrong. This is wrong. We should never say God is not going to accept me. Maybe your mother is not going to accept you. Maybe your father, maybe your husband, maybe your wife, but not God. God is different. God is not emotional. God is not angry. God is not frustrated. God is the Lord of Rahmah. Anni ana al-ghafur al-rahim. I am forgiving. Whatever you did in your life, whatever you did, God is willing to accept you. God is willing to take you. God is willing to admit you into His mercy, into His love, into His kingdom, into His forgiveness. We should not give up on God. In the same chapter we're going to recite, وَمَنْ يَقْنُطْ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. Ibrahim says, who's going to despair from God's mercy except who? ضَالُّونَ. Misguided. Those who are misguided, those who don't know God. But if you know God, you don't give up on Him. وَمَنْ يَقْنُطْ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. This is what we have to always spread. Speak always about God's love. Don't frighten people. Don't frighten your children, your friends, that, oh, God is terrible. God is asabi. God is shadidul intiqam. God is going to destroy you. Speak about God's acceptance, God's mercy. It's wrong always to portray God as someone who created people to punish them. This is not right. Punishment is an exception. It's not the norm. The norm is mercy. The norm in this life is divine love, divine forgiveness. Punishment, God does not choose punishment for us. We choose it. It's our choice. It's not His choice. His choice is rahmah. He created us to bestow mercy. If there is some punishment, then this is our choice, not God's choice. It's like someone who does not drink, okay? No water, no food. What will happen to him? When someone declines, abstain from eating and drinking for several days, and the food is available, the water is available, what happens to that person? What happens? Tell me. Is this a difficult question to answer? He's going to die. That person is going to die. He chose death because he did not eat, he did not drink. Food and drink were available. He didn't. Or someone who did not take the medicine. Medicine is there available. The doctor is there, the hospital, the emergency room, everything is there. He says, no, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I want to die. So he's choosing death. He's choosing for himself. Some people choose punishment for themselves. God's mercy is always there, 24/7 available. وَأَنَّكَ لَا تَحْتَجِبُ عَنْ خَلْقِكَ إِلَّا أَن تَحْجُبُهُمُ الْأَعْمَالُ دُونَكَ. You don't veil yourself. You don't cover your mercy from people. They cover themselves from you. You don't cover yourself. God's doors are always open. He does not shut His door. Not even a single hour. Always open. It's us. It's left for us to go or not to go. To go to Him or not to go. Therefore, in number 50, ayah number 50, as an exception. This is an exception, not the norm. وَأَنَّ عَذَابِي هُوَ الْعَذَابُ الْأَلِيمُ. My punishment is very severe, is a severe punishment, is a painful punishment. But His mercy always takes precedence over His what? His wrath. Mercy first. Mercy is the norm, not the wrath. You just heard in Dua Kumail, Ya Sari' al-Rida, the last sentence. Ya Sari' al-Rida. Oh God, who easily accept me. After I doing mess in my life, I created a mess. I go to Him, I say, I really apologize to you. Please, would you accept me? He's Sari'. He does not say, okay, let me think about it. If you go to your mother, maybe she says, or father, or a friend, he says, maybe, I will think about it. God does not say, I will think about it. He says, yes, if you are ready, I'm ready. I'm here for you. I'm not going to send you back. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to forgive you tomorrow. I'm forgiving you now, right now. Immediately, right now, without any delay. Ya Sari' al-Rida. This is the meaning of Ya Sari' al-Rida. Ya man sabaqat rahmatuhu ghadabah. Oh, the Lord, who always His rahmah precedes, overtakes His wrath. Overtakes His wrath. His rahmah is bigger than the wrath. His rahmah, His mercy, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, encompasses everything. And shay here means two things. Means people, us, and means every other object in this universe. Encompasses everything. No exception. God's mercy is so huge that it accepts everyone. God created mercy of 100 parts. He sent one part to this life. He's using now one. He's reserving 99 parts to the day of judgment. لِيَغْفِرَ بِهَا لِلْعَاصِينَ. He reserves 99 portion of His mercy to the day of judgment, so He keeps forgiving and forgiving and forgiving till a point that even Iblis thinks that if he goes to Him now, he will accept his apology. Even Iblis. See how much God is forgiving? وَأَنَّ عَذَابِي هُوَ الْعَذَابُ الْأَلِيمُ. Therefore, such generous God, we should take advantage of Him, His generosity. He's inviting us. One of the nights where we should seek forgiveness from God and mercy from God and help from God and guidance from Him is tonight, Laylatul Jumu'ah, holy night. God says, my mercy is on sale, open. The doors are open, Laylatul Jumu'ah. Anyone, the hadith says, Hadith al-Qudsi, ألا هل من تائب, ألا هل من مستغفر, ألا هل من طالب حاجة. Is anyone among my servants who has a need, who wants to come back to God, who feels regret, remorse for what he did, what she did? God is there. God is there. He's opening His arms for us. وَنَبِّئْهُمْ. Now we turn to a story. We cannot cover the story only tonight, but next Thursday, inshallah ta'ala. A story where we learn lessons from it. This is, my job here is to translate the Quran to the best of my ability. This is my job. This story is very critical. Some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it. I am telling you what is in our book. This is a book of guidance. This is our constitution. This is the revelation. This is not made by Muhammad. This is revelation, wahi from God. God is very merciful, very wise, very open-minded. So if you want to judge, don't judge me. I'm going to tell you a critical story here. Critical story in this book. But we have to listen and see what God says. Okay? We have to listen to what God says. This is a book of reflection. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. The story which follows in 51 onward, We cannot cover it in 1 week. I divided it into 2 parts, 2 sections. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah. These were 5 towns in Palestine, today's Jordan. In the past, the whole area used to be called the Levant, Bilad al-Sham, the Levant, the whole area. The area of Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. This region used to be Bilad al-Sham. So this story happened in Bilad al-Sham because Ibrahim alayhi salam was born in Iraq, but he moved to Palestine. For some time he was in Palestine. Then he came for a period of time to Mecca. Then he went back to Palestine and he died in Palestine. His grave is there. His nephew Lut alayhi salam was next to him, not too far from him. In Sodom and Gomorrah. These are 5 towns. The main one, Sodom and Gomorrah. They were in today's Jordan, in today's Dead Sea, where the Dead Sea is, Al-Bahr al-Mayyit. This was the location of these 5 towns. So listen to the story. What happened? What happened? God says to the Prophet, tell the Muslims, tell your community, وَنَبِّئْهُمْ عَنْ ضَيْفِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. Tell them about the guest of Abraham. Abraham received a guest or guests. Some people say 3 in the Bible. The story of the Bible, it says 3 angels. Some say 5, some say 12. But there were a number of guests who came without warning. They didn't call him. They didn't get an appointment. They walk in. Have you seen some walk in? It happens in the Middle East until today. MashaAllah. Guests, they come without walk in. All of a sudden they ring. They knock at the door and Salamu Alaikum. And here they need 2 weeks notice. But in our country, walk in. So they came, walk in. Middle Eastern. وَنَبِّئْهُمْ عَنْ ضَيْفِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. Tell your community about the story. This story has lessons, عبرة, reflection. إِذْ دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَقَالُوا سَلَامًا قَالَ إِنَّا مِنْكُمْ وَجِلُونَ. They entered upon him in his house. فَقَالُوا سَلَامًا. They greeted him. Salam. His answer was, إِنَّا مِنْكُمْ وَجِلُونَ. Verily, me and my family are afraid of you. وَجِلُونَ from wajal. Wajal in Arabic means fear. I'm fearful. Why he was fearful? Because if you read in chapter 11, Surah Hud, before this chapter is 15, before that is 11. He presented food to them. At that time, in that culture, when a guest comes to your house, you give him food. Sometimes you don't ask him whether he eats or not. In some cultures, like the Arab cultures, other cultures, in American cultures, they ask you, have you had lunch or not? If you hadn't had lunch, they bring you some peanuts and, some Bristols. What are they, Brussels and these things, Alhamdulillah, this is very delicious food. But in other cultures, they slaughter a sheep or lamb or something like that. This is what Ibrahim, جاء بعجل حنيذ. He went, he slaughtered the lamb, and then he made uzi. Uzi means roasted lamb. So, but they didn't eat. فَلَمَّا رَأَى أَيْدِيَهُمْ لَا تَصِلُ إِلَيْهِمْ. He saw that their hands is not approaching the food. They are not touching the food. لا تصل إليه نكرهم. نكرهم, he said, what's wrong with them? I brought them food. They are guests. Maybe they traveled in the desert for some time, maybe a few hours, maybe a few days. And usually the guest has to eat. And if he doesn't eat, that's an indication of what? If a guest comes to you at that time and you prepare food, you put the food right before him or her, and they don't eat, this means this is a sign of what? Hostility. That they want to do something wrong to you. Otherwise, they have to eat. فَلَمَّا رَأَى أَيْدِيَهُمْ لَا تَصِلُ إِلَيْهِ نَكِرَهُمْ وأوجس منهم خيفة. أوجس, he felt fearful. قالوا لا تخف إنا أرسلنا إلى قوم لوط. This is in Surah Hud. I am quoting Surah Hud now. They said to him, no, don't worry. Don't get us wrong. We are angels, we don't eat. No food, no drink, no desire, no relationship, no marriage, no mortgage to pay, alhamdulillah, no insurance, nothing. Nothing. Free of everything. Free of all responsibilities. No material benefit, no consumption of anything. The only thing they have, how do they survive? On the remembrance of God. They remember God always. This is how they survive. On the remembrance of God. Dhikr. Dhikrullahi ta'ala. So he said to them, Inna minkum wajilun. I am fearful. You are not eating. قالوا لا توجل إنا نبشرك بغلام عليم. Don't be afraid. We are here to bring glad tidings to you and your family of a son who is alim. Alim means what? Learned and knowing. So who was that son? No. He's in Palestine. Ismail was not in Palestine, in Mecca. This is Ishaq. This is Ishaq after Ismail. Ismail was born. This is Ishaq after him. After him. Ismail was born when his father was, they say, was 86. Ibrahim was 86. Now Ibrahim is 100 years old. Ibrahim is 100 years old, or 102 when they came to him. And his wife is well in her 90s. Sarah. Sarah was in her 90s. So they are bringing glad tidings about his second son, not the senior one, not Ismail, but Isaac. إِنَّا نُبَشِّرُكَ بِغُلَامٍ عَلِيمٍ قَالَ أَبَشَّرْتُمُونِي عَلَىٰ أَنْ مَسَّنِيَ الْكِبَرُ فَبِمَ تُبَشِّرُونَ. You are giving me glad tidings about a son while I'm of an old age now. I'm almost 100, a century old. Old age has befallen me. So what type of bishara and glad tidings you are telling me? Are you serious? Ibrahim was astonished. He knows those are messengers of God, but yet, because they said something unusual. At the age of 100 years old, his wife almost 90, we are giving you glad tidings that you're going to have a son. What did they answer him? قالوا بشرناك بالحق. We are giving you the truth. بشرناك بالحق. فلا تكن من القانطين. Do not be among those people who are despair. Don't give up. You are 100 years old, it doesn't matter. This energy comes from God. God is the bestower of health and energy and children and wealth and health and everything. It's not difficult. Yeah, normal circumstances, someone who is 100 years old, his wife is 90, she becomes barren, infertile. She cannot have children, she cannot get pregnant. But this is a miracle. And God can change the law. In special circumstances, God can change the law. The law of the nature that has been created by God Himself, He can change it. He can modify it for special reasons. So this is the work of God. فَلَا تَكُمْ مِنَ الْقَانِطِينَ. Now, my friend, someone would ask, Ibrahim at that time was a prophet. How can he be one of the despondents and people who despair? قانط. Doesn't he have belief in God? In this context, despair does not mean despair, literally despair. He gave up on God. Or he thinks that God cannot perform this miracle. It is, despair here means disbelief. And it is different from despair. It's different. Sometimes something too huge, too big to be understood. So sometimes It's difficult to believe, but that does not mean I don't believe that God cannot do it. No, God can do everything. But for me, because they are telling me something new, big, it would be difficult to absorb, to accept. So it is not about despair, it's about disbelief. فلا تكن من القانطين قال ومن يقنط من رحمة ربه إلا الضالون. Immediately, Ibrahim said, of course, I don't despair. Only those people despair, only those people who are the people of mischief, who do not know God. ضالون. Those who have no relationship with God. Those who do not trust God, they despair. Otherwise, I do not despair. وَمَنْ يَقْنُطْ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. Inshallah, the rest of it, leave it for next week, inshallah. So I want you to be more excited. So I leave the second part for next week. We lost yesterday, or the day before yesterday, a friend who's one of the pioneers of Islamic work in America, Dr. Mike Mirahmadi, Khosrow Mirahmadi Shari'ati. He was in Bunyad Iman and also the Islamic Center of Beverly Hills. He's a professor at UCLA, very good man. And he used to come to this mosque many times, and he spoke here at this podium. So he passed away. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to receive him with his forgiveness. Tomorrow is his memorial at Bunyad Iman, and I'm going to be there and speak, inshallah. Tomorrow, Salatul Jumu'ah, remember, at noon, inshallah, 12. So don't come at 1 p.m. If you come at 1 p.m., you don't see anyone here. So, inshallah, we begin the Salat at 12, and before 1, we finish, inshallah. Allahumma aghfir lil mu'minina wal mu'minat wal muslimina wal muslimat الأحياء منهم والأموات تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك غافر الخطيئات إنك ماحي السيئات وجاعلها حسنات إنك على كل شيء قدير. I ask you to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for Dr. Mir Ahmadi and Mu'mineen and Mu'minat مع